Greetings and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Monitoring and Reporting on Lync Server 2013. Let's start off with a monitoring server overview. When you deploy Lync Server 2013, as part of the deployment process within your topology builder, you can define if you want to enable monitoring in your Lync environment. If you enable monitoring on your pool, you're now able to capture call detail records and quality of experience metrics data. So not only can we see how the product is being used by the end users, we can also see the level of quality being provided out on the network as it's getting reported by your clients, your servers, and your advanced qualified gateways. Now, with the monitoring services, we also have the ability to view our return on investment by being able to query for the usage of the product, and we can see who's using the product and for how long. So the call detail records not only can it give you a window into who's using the product, but it can also be useful for costing purposes. One of the criteria that we were looking at when we looked at Microsoft Lync Server 2013 was not only what can the product do, because we know it has audio and video conferencing, application sharing, desktop sharing, file transfer, and all that stuff, but we wanted to make sure that we could also administer the product efficiently and effectively. And the monitoring services provided us the level of troubleshooting detail that we thought would be required so we could go in and view the product and see where we were having problems. Now, one of the big areas of concern for us was looking at conferencing. At Carve Rock Fitness, we're going to be using audio and video conferencing extensively. We need to make sure that the product is going to provide us a level of quality that we expect. Top-level management had some concerns with switching off of an external audio conferencing provider, so we're going to have to monitor this extensively when we first deploy it. Another pain point that we had in the organization is IP phone inventory. In the past, we've had problems tracking our phones, and it seems like a lot of these expensive IP-based phones have been walking away. Well, with Lync Server 2013, we have some built-in reports, and one of those reports is an IP phone inventory report. We'll be able to track where those devices are on our network and if they're being used. With your quality of experience metrics data getting captured and sent over into your database, we will also be able to see the quality of the communication on the network. Well, built into your clients, your Lync servers, and also some of your advanced gateways, they will report information over to the Lync server at the end of any SIP communication sessions. So you'll be able to see information regarding drop packets, round trip time, latency, jitter. We'll also be able to see the clients communicating in a session based upon their IP address and also the client versions that they're actually using. One of the big advancements that we've had with our Lync clients over the years is that starting back with Lync Server 2010, your clients now report information to your end users. So if you have a user that's participating in a conference and maybe they're not getting the level of network bandwidth that's required, well, you might get a little message that pops up that says, hey, maybe instead of connecting to a wireless access point, you might want to plug into the LAN. Or you might have a message that pops up that your mouth is too far away from your microphone, or that maybe you don't have enough CPU cycles on your laptop to be able to support the conference. Well, the issues reported to your end users also get passed up to the monitoring server, so we as administrators will also have a bird's eye view into what your clients are seeing down on their local desktops. Let's take a look at the monitoring server requirements. When you deploy the monitoring services within your Lync environment, there's a lot of working pieces that have to be put into effect in order for the monitoring services to work. Well, first of all, we have your front-end servers. And over here on your front-end servers, we have to enable the monitoring within the pool. So that's from within inside of your topology builder. And your monitoring services will pass information over to the back-end SQL Server databases for your call detail records and your quality of experience metrics data. Your clients also report information over to the monitoring services, and your clients will get their information from in-band provisioning. When your clients connect over to the Lync servers, they'll get information regarding whether the monitoring is enabled or not. We also have to be able to report this information, and on your backend SQL Server, we typically have the SQL Server reporting services deployed, and then from inside of your Lync environment, we also have to deploy the monitoring server reports. But don't worry about the detail now. We're going to see how to set this all up as we go through the demonstration. Let's talk about our databases in a little more depth. On your backend SQL Server, we're going to have two databases. One database is called QoEmetrics.mdf, and the Quality of Experience Metrics database maintains a lot of the information regarding what your clients are experiencing during their communication sessions, as reported back by your clients, and also by your servers such as your audio-video conferencing or your mediation servers. We also have another database which is called LCS CDR. The LCS CDR maintains information regarding who is using which modalities of communication and for how long, which again, that can be used for costing purposes. Now, as we set up Lync Server 2013 for monitoring, keep in mind that the monitoring services are now co-located on your front-end servers. Whereas with Lync Server 2010, we used to have to use a separate dedicated monitoring server. Well, that's a thing of the past. Microsoft has now gone to a unified solution where they're co-locating that on the front-end servers in an effort to reduce the number of servers within your environment. Now, as we set up the monitoring within our environment, keep in mind that the product is extremely flexible. A backend SQL Server database used for monitoring can host upwards of 250,000 clients. And when we set up the monitoring services, you're going to have a lot of flexibility in where you're storing your content. Your front-end servers can maintain your SQL Server database content on the same SQL Server that is maintaining your topology and CMS information. We can also store the information in a separate SQL Server if we want to. And if later on as our company grows, if we decide to set up additional pools, those pools can also report over to the same SQL Server databases. With your Lync Server 2013 monitoring services, it does require that we have a full deployment of SQL Server. And that can be either SQL Server 2008 R2 or 2012. Both of them would have to be 64-bit. So even if you had the standard edition of Microsoft Lync, with your local SQL Server 64-bit Express Edition, well, that wouldn't support the monitoring services. You gotta have a full working version of SQL. Before we go through the demonstration on deploying the monitoring services, let's take a look at the high-level overview of the process that we're going to go through. In order to deploy the monitoring services with Microsoft Lync 2013, we're going to have to go through numerous steps. Well, number one, you've got your Microsoft SQL Server that has the SQL Server reporting services that need to be installed. And with the reporting services, we also typically want to lock it down with a valid certificate for secure connectivity over to the reporting. Well, one of the first things that we have to do is to associate the monitoring store with a front-end pool. The monitoring store is your back-end SQL Server. So from within our topology builder, we're going to go to the properties for our pool and define where we're going to maintain our store information. So you'll enable the monitoring services and define where your back-end SQL Server is, and also if you want to enable mirroring of your SQL Server database content. Now when it comes to the SQL Server reporting services, these can be installed while you're installing SQL Server, or you can add it on later on after the fact. But again, keep in mind that with Microsoft Lync, we do have some built-in reports, and those built-in reports do leverage off of SQL Server reporting services. So you're going to want to get this installed. When we install the Lync Server 2013 monitoring reports from inside of our Lync 2013 deployment wizard, this is where we're going to be able to define what user account is used to connect over to the reporting services instance, and we can also define which user or group will have read access to the reports. The final step is going into your control panel and making sure that you enable the settings for monitoring. So for example, number one, do I want to capture call detail records, and do I want to capture quality of experience metrics data? And then for both of those, you can also define how long we're going to maintain the information up on our SQL Server database. Now you have to remember that both the QoE metrics in the CDR database use roughly about 30 kbps per day per user. So the size of your database can grow rather rapidly, especially with a lot of people in the environment. So we're going to have to put a limit on the size of our database, or more specifically, the number of days that we're going to maintain content in our databases before we purge it out automatically. Microsoft has added in the ability to manually purge out your databases coming in through the command line. This was a feature that was lacking with Lync Server 2010. We have two new commandlets, invoke-cs CDR database purge, if you want to purge out your call detail records database, and we also have the invoke-cs QoE database purge commandlet, if you want to purge out your quality of experience metrics database. So we don't have to rely upon the system automatically purging out after so many days. If all of a sudden the database starts to take up too much space, well, we can purge out content manually if we choose to. Let's take a look at using the monitoring server reports of Lync 2013. Once we've deployed the monitoring server reports at Carve Rock Fitness, we're going to have access to call detail records information and quality of experience metrics data throughout the enterprise. Not only will we be able to see who's using the different modalities of communication, we'll also be able to see the performance as getting reported back from your endpoints, your users on the network, and also your servers, like your audio video conferencing servers and your mediation servers. When we go into the monitoring services and we run the reports, you're going to see that we also have something called a monitoring dashboard. The dashboard gives you a nice high-level overview of what's going on across a lot of the features of the product. It's kind of like the mile-high overview of what's going on with Lync. As you would expect with any reporting product, we have to be able to filter data down. And when we run our reports, we want to make sure that we're getting the reports pertinent to the information that we're looking for. Well, as you're going to see, when you run your reports, you can filter based off of date and time, based off of clients, and maybe I'm looking for IP-based phones for certain manufacturers and models. As you're going to see and as you would expect, we do have the ability to filter out our reports. One of the requirements that we had from management regarding Lync was that we were able to support audio and video conferencing to obtain a good return on investment. Well, with Microsoft Lync Server 2013 monitoring, we're going to be able to go in and track how the audio and the video conferencing is being used, as well as the performance level that's being provided through mean opinion scores. Let's take a look at a demonstration on configuring the Lync Server 2013 reporting services. To start off the demonstration, I've connected over to my Microsoft SQL Server. I've got SQL Server 2008 R2, and I also have the reporting services installed. I want to make sure that I'm using a valid certificate for my reporting services, so as the administrators connect over to view the reports, they're using an SSL-based connection. So let's click on Start. We'll navigate up here to Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2. Then we'll go down to Configuration Tools. And then right at the top of the list, you can see I have the Reporting Services Configuration Manager. Here I'm going to connect into my local instance of Microsoft SQL Server. Navigate over here to my web services URL. And then if you had not already gone in here and applied a certificate, what you would do is you would click on the option here next to SSL certificate. Underneath your drop-down menu choice, this is where you'll see your choices of certificates that are installed on your box. Now you can see that I've already enabled this, so I'm using port 443 for SSL-based connections. So you can see down below here I have that additional link, https:// followed by the FQDN of my SQL box, port 443/report server. So when I open up the reports, you should see inside of my web browser that that's where I'm going to be connecting to. So here, I'm going to click on Apply. And then we'll click on Exit. Let's take a look at the Microsoft Lync server. Okay, I've just switched over to my Microsoft Lync server, and on the Lync server, I want to take a look at my topology builder. Inside of the topology builder is where you will enable monitoring on your pool. So let's open up our topology builder. We'll go to All Programs, Microsoft Lync Server 2013, and there's my Lync Server topology builder. Now what you will do is you'll download your topology from the existing deployment, because in our case I've already got my Lync server installed. You specify a name for your local topology file that you're going to work off of, and I'm just going to overwrite my file that's already there, but that's okay. And then I will expand my topology. Here's Scottsdale, my Scottsdale site. Open up Lync Server 2013 Enterprise Edition. Right click on my pool and go down to Edit Properties. And then as I scroll down, you'll see that I can associate my monitoring services with a SQL Server store. So what you're going to do here is you enable the monitoring, and as you can see, I enabled monitoring when I set up my pool. And as you enable the monitoring, you then have to enable the monitoring SQL Server store. That's where the database content is going to be stored for the QoE metrics in the CDR database content. Now you'll also notice that I can use the same instance. I'm using the default for both my CMS as well as my monitoring SQL Server store. You can also use a separate instance if you choose to. I'm going to click on OK. And then what you would do if you haven't done it already is take your settings and you have to publish them over to CMS. So when you go to publish your topology, just keep in mind that if you're creating brand new databases that have not been created yet, if you have the necessary credentials during the publishing process, you'll be prompted for creation of those databases and you'll be able to create them on the fly. Now I've already created the databases, So this publishing should go nice and smooth, and I don't have to worry about creating those databases on the fly because I've already got them. Now just keep in mind that if you were creating those databases, you would actually see it in the console. You would see little messages that it was connecting over to SQL and creating your databases. We'll click on Finish. So now I've got monitoring enabled inside of my topology, and I've published the topology information over to CMS. Well, let's take a look at the next step, going into our control panel. Here I'm being prompted for my credentials to connect into Lync to administer through the control panel. So we'll put in our password. And then from inside of the control panel, I just want to navigate down to where I have monitoring and archiving. You'll notice that I have call detail recordings and quality of experience data. So let's start off with the call detail recordings. Your CDR settings can be enabled globally or at the site level. When you enable your settings, very simple settings, do you want to enable monitoring of call detail records? And would you like to enable purging of CDR records after so many days? So again, if I'm using roughly 30 kbps per day per user times the number of days, it gives you an idea of the size of your database over on SQL. So in this case here, this would be my LCS CDR database. So I can keep CDR for a maximum number of days. I can also keep error reporting data for so many days as well. Now, if I look at the quality of experience data, which is my QoE metrics data, again, you can apply these settings globally or at the site level. And then when you apply them, again, very simple. Do you want to enable monitoring of QoE metrics data? And do you want to enable purging of the data after so many days? Once again, we'll cancel off of there. Now, the final part of the demonstration is, what about the reports? Let's go take a look at them. Well, once you've installed the reports in your environment, you're going to be able to gain access to your reports from your home link. Well, we haven't installed the reports yet, so let's see how we go about doing that. What I need to do over here is go into my Start option, go up to All Programs, Lync Server 2013, and then we'll open up the Deployment Wizard because we are deploying reports. And as you can see, my system is determining my deployment state, but when it's done, I'll be able to launch the link over here to deploy the monitoring reports. So let's click on that link. And then we'll wait for it to open up. On the first property sheet, we can choose our monitoring services database and also our SQL Server Reporting Services instance. Keep in mind that this information is getting pulled from the topology data that I published to CMS. We'll click on Next. On the next property sheet, I specify the credentials to be used by SQL Server Reporting Services to access the monitoring database over on SQL. Now, in the production environment, we're going to use a connection account, but for my demonstration, I'm just going to use my administrative account. And then we'll put in our password. On the next property sheet, we specify a user or group that will have read access to the SQL Server Reporting Services. So these are people that can actually run the reports and see the reports. Now for my demonstration, I'm going to use Carverock Fitness, the RTC Universal Read-Only Admins group. And this group got created when we deployed Microsoft Lync 2013. So here I have Carverock Fitness, RTC Universal Read-Only Admins. We'll click on Next. And from here I can see that those reports are now going to get installed. When you install the reports, it usually takes a couple of minutes. But again, it's a very simple process, and once you've defined your accounts, it's really automated. So you just sit back and watch it install. And then when this is done installing, we should be able to run the reports from back inside of our control panel from the home link. And as you can see, as these are installing, I'm able to see my successful messages popping up on the screen. Now you can see that I have my monitoring reports. They've been successfully deployed. So we'll click on Finish and then go take a look at what the reports look like. So back over in the control panel, we navigate up to the home link. And then down below here you see where it says View Monitoring Reports. And you can see that I now have an active link to connect over to CRF SQL 1 www.carverockfitness.com. And as I click on that link, I should have a web browser that opens up and it connects me over to that HTTPS link that I've created. So here you can see I'm connecting over to https://crfsql1.carverockfitness.com/report server. And here I'll put in my credentials. And then click on OK. So as my Monitoring Services Reports console opens up, you can see that I have my default view. And on the default view, you have access to a lot of different reports. We have system usage reports, user registration reports, peer-to-peer activity summary, conferencing summary, PSTN conferencing summary, response group usage, IP phone inventory, and call admission control, which is our bandwidth management. Underneath that one, we have our call diagnostic reports per user, so you can look at user activity. We also have call diagnostic reports. You have a summary report, peer-to-peer activity, conferencing diagnostics. Now, here's a new report that got added with Lync 2013, the conferencing join time report. This was a big request by a lot of administrators. They want to know when people are joining your conferences. We have top failure reports, failure distribution reports. We also have media quality diagnostic reports, including a summary, a comparison report, you have server performance reports, location report, and you also have a device report. Now, keep in mind that there are a lot of reports and there is a tremendous amount of information inside of some of these reports. There's a lot of acronyms, a lot of abbreviations. My recommendation on this is that out at the Microsoft download site, they actually have a downloadable guide on how to interpret the reports. If you're new to the reporting, you definitely want to download this because it will help make something meaningful out of a lot of detailed info. Now, when you run your reports, you click on the link, it opens up the specific report, and then you can filter down what you want to run that report for. So if I want to filter down based on a certain time frame, or in this case, maybe I want to run a report based off of a certain pool. If I look at the IP phone inventory report, I can filter down based off of manufacturer and models. How long back are we going to go to see, which phones have been used out there? Also keep in mind that when you view your reports, you have the ability to take the output of your report and you can export it into different formats. So if you have management calling you up all the time and they want to see this information and make sure that they're getting that return on investment for all that money they put out for Lync, well, you want to make sure that you're able to pull that information out of the database in a nice format. Well, here you see that you can pull the content out in XML, CSV, PDF, a web archive, MHTML, Excel, TIFF, or Word format. Let's close out of here. Now back over on the monitoring reports, you also see that I have a link for the dashboard view. And the dashboard view gives me like a nice high-level overview of what's going on with my environment. So here you can see that I have system usage, call diagnostics. I also have media quality diagnostics and per user call diagnostics. And if you have information inside of here, if you click on these links, you typically get what are called drill down reports. So you can link to more detailed information. So for example, if I have total sessions for IM and I want to see more detailed information regarding those sessions, well, you typically have an active link here. You click on it and it allows you to see that more detailed information. Well, that's the end of the demonstration. I hope you've enjoyed it. And we'll see you in the next video.